Hello and welcome everybody to our wonderful interview this month with Lucy Legan, who is the author and creator of the Planetschooling book, among other books and courses that she runs. So she's going to tell us all about what she's doing, why she's doing it, and how she's incorporating permaculture into her life. We are super honored to have her here with us this month as our change maker interviewee. And we have a competition on Instagram this month where you can win one of her amazing books. Our membership is also going to receive one of her books as well for their prize for engagement. And we have won and we love it. So she's going to tell you all about her book. Sammy's going to ask the question. So let's jump into it without further ado.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for joining us, Lucy.
Thanks for inviting me.
Yeah, thank you so much. Extremely inspirational. I've been enjoying your book so much.
Wonderful.
So yeah, Lucy, if you could tell us a little bit about yourself and what you do, what fills your day with work and play.
Yeah. So my day is usually the same. It's the same. It's a bit of routine. It's a little bit boring, but a little bit fun. I always start off writing, and I spend a couple of hours on the computer until my butt gets too sore. And then I move out to the garden and start working in the garden. I have a grandchild, so usually around 3, 4, he comes over after school, and I do a bit of homeschooling with him. Even though he goes to school, I also give him a bit of homeschooling. I homeschooled my kid, my own child, for probably until she was 17. So from 6 to 17 in Brazil, and that was a bit of a challenge. But through that challenge, I was able to write a book that was in a sequential order about nature. So it was a tough. I mean, she drove me crazy. Whoever homeschools understands that. You love it and you hate it at the same time. You're just like, yes, this is beautiful. But we had this nice relationship. And now my grandson actually asked to be homeschooled. He's like, can you homeschool me after school? I'm there, all right then. We call it homework. He calls homeschooling.
Oh, wonderful. Yes, I resonate with a lot of that. Thank you, Lucy.
Yeah.
Yeah. Can you tell us a little bit about why you do that? Why you do what you do?
So what happened about 20 odd years ago, I went to Brazil with my husband, who's Brazilian. We were living in Australia with our small daughter. She was like about 5 then. And we went to Brazil, and we both had completed permaculture courses in Australia many moons ago. We went to Brazil to visit his family for a year, and we ended up staying there 20 years. So it was a massive change. And even though I was doing more permaculture as a hobby, so I'd grow my own food, and I was like self-sufficient, and all very cool. But then all around me, it was quite miserable. And the schools in Brazil were quite challenging for me. Some of the teachers were 16, 17 years old in the favelas, which is the shanty towns. And I sort of got a call to action thinking, well, my life, I'm privileged, I'm really lucky, and surely I can give something back to the community. So I started working with a small group of people. Lots of volunteers came to the place that we were living on, a block of land. And we started working first with adults in permaculture. And then once we got that underway, people started criticizing, saying, well, you live in, because I can't remember, they didn't know what we started with. They were like, you live in paradise here, what about kids? And I was like, well, let's take the next step. So it was a constant call to action, because I was fair-haired and blue-eyed. I was challenged all the time, and I took on nearly every challenge. I tried to do it positively. Sometimes it would drive me crazy, and I'd drop the challenge because it was way too big for me. But, I thought, okay, yeah, you're right. It is paradise. He said, let's go to schools. So we started changing schools.
Wow, that's fantastic. And there's so much in there. I'd love to hear more.
Yeah. I take my call to action very seriously, even in Australia. And that's why I did this book during lockdown, huh?
Yeah, thank
Right.
you.
Yeah. So
Yes.
just speaking on that, you produced this book during lockdown, but you've already written, while you're in Brazil, you wrote a book. Can you tell
That's
our
right.
listeners about that?
Yeah, so I've written actually in Brazil. I wrote about 6 books, and three of them I was a ghostwriter for WWF. So ghostwriter means you do all the work, but you don't get the credit. They get the credit, but I was quite happy with that because it was a really important project. And the other books were based once again. One was called Sustainable Schools, and three books was focused on farmers that didn't have a formal education. So it was really simple reading, lots of photographs, so they could actually move, or lots of drawings actually, so they could move from using agrochemicals to becoming organic. And that was an accident. They were accidental books, but they went everywhere. And I was actually quite embarrassed because that's when I learned that if you're going to write a book, write it like you want it. Just don't write a book and just throw it out on ebooks or things like that. Because if you're going to do that, you'll regret it because it may go everywhere, and then you'll be like, oh my god, why did I do that? Why didn't I put more effort? So a little bit of advice there.
Thank you.
Thank you. Very good. But obviously, it was so needed. The people there were really applying it and taking
Yeah,
it.
that's right. That's right. And even, it went to universities and that. So I was a little bit embarrassed because it was a really thrown together book. It was a challenge. A guy challenged me to write a book in 2 weeks. So, it was lots of drawings and lots of arrows and things, but it was for people that didn't have much literacy. And it worked well.
Obviously met them where they're at. And,
So during COVID, once again, this sounds a bit strange, but I sort of got a message that I had to do something in English. My friends were saying, "Look, we need something in English," and I walked out. It was a strange moon, and the moon screamed out to me, "Kickstarter now!" So I threw it on Kickstarter, and within 42 days, it was partially funded.
Wow.
Yeah.
amazing.
So once again, it's a great Kickstarter. It's a great format for people that have an idea of a project and they think it's worthy. Well, they throw it out to the online community and then they back you if they think it's good.
Yeah, supported heaps of kick funders.
Yeah. It's a great, it's a great way that the community takes control of the material that they want.
And share your journey with them.
Exactly.
And credit to you for listening to the calls to action.
Yeah.
It was taking up those challenges.
I always say I blame the moon. It's a good way to do it.
Thank you,
He was actually,
beautiful. And so, did you come back from Brazil at the beginning of COVID to write this book? Was that
no? So what happened? My daughter had she had a child, and she was she was in the process of finishing uni. She said, "Mom, I need help. I can't do this by myself." So I came over, and Andre came over. And we settled, and then COVID struck. So, we were over here, lucky enough, because Brazil is actually having a really hard time.
Right.
Really hard time. We've had, we've had family die and things like that. So friends.
Okay.
Yeah, and younger people too. It's not just the elderly like in Australia.
Right.
35-year-olds, and so it's quite. We're so lucky in Australia. We really are.
Yes.
And you're in Mullumbimby.
Yes, that's right. We're in Mullen, the anti-vax capital of Australia. Very curious place.
Yeah, with a beautiful community garden.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. But you'll see that as you go down the main street, massive signs on Santos, the organic food place.
Yeah.
The Mullumbimby community is curious. It's really against any. It's very into the conspiracy theories, and it just goes out there. So I give them credit for doing what they believe as well.
Coranda is much the same. But we are all living the privileged life here too. It's
exactly. I often question myself that if I was in Brazil, I'd probably be putting my hand up the first as well. Because
when you're
we're an island. We're safe because we're an island.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Let's jump on to the next question. So
Yeah.
Go, Sammy.
Sure. Yeah. Can you tell us about the ways that you use this module, the use and value renewables, how you use that principle in your life?
Yeah, it's actually one of my favorite, because a renewable for me is, you know, you have the sun, you have the wind, you have soil, which soil in our lifetime is classified as non-renewable, but of course in the cosmic sense of 4 million years, it's a renewable, and plants as well. So I'm very focused on simplifying the renewables. So in Brazil, we actually use, you know, we have the little windmills, and we have solar panels. Like, everything's mini because it's so expensive over there. But you know, in Australia, even though I have the top technology, I base myself on soil and plants. Very much so. So it's like looking after the soil, making compost. I'm such a compost nerd, and a worm nerd. In an Australian suburban backyard, I have 5 worm farms. You know, and my husband thinks, you know, he wonders, it's not a bit over the top, you have so many, but I'm able to feed them all, so they're happy. And you know, also we have compost piles. I have 3 cool composting piles and 1 hot composting piles for the dodgy stuff. So yeah, I'm very much a soil nerd, and for me that is the basis. 98 or 95 to 98% of our food comes from soil, so it makes sense that we care for the soil and we value it. And that's also with you know, water. In Brazil we have, you know, we obviously swale everything, and we have, you know, large ponds and dams, you know, and we brought back wildlife. You know, we had a cow paddock, and just by creating swales and ponds and dams, the wildlife came back. It was quite incredible. But in an urban setting, I have a little pond, an old bathtub that's been turned into a pond, that we have some fish, and also frog hotels. My grandson's right into it, so we have them everywhere. But yeah, very much. And also the sun, really, it's just capturing, you know, I often look at designs where people have, you know, in Brazil, sometimes it's just like lots of, we have our high buildings, or buildings very close together. So for me, it's like, how do you capture sun in an area like that? So we use a lot of broken mirrors, mosaics, you know, to reflect sun in, make sure the sun is reflecting, you know, into the mirror, into a small pond, so that then brings more light. So it's all these tricky little permaculture tricks and landscaping tricks that you can bring the sun in if you're in a cold area. So you can use black rocks, and you can absorb the heat, and then that will radiate to your plants. Or you can use the little landscaping tricks, you know, using mirrors and other rocks to actually reflect. So it depends how much sun you need, or how much warmth you need,
to create those lovely little microclimates.
Now, if I talk too much, stop me.
We're loving it all.
There's no such thing.
Because I'm a bit of a rant and a rave.
No, it's fantastic.
Soaking it all up. So you mentioned you have a presentation to show at some point in our interview here around use and value renewable resources in your projects.
Yeah, we can show that now, because it really shows you how children, if you give them a few design methods and an introduction to permaculture, then they easily take on the design methods and create amazing things, and using, you know, the simple things, soil, plants, and bringing water into the landscape. So I'm going to share my screen. Yes,
beautiful.
Please. So when in Brazil, we thought it was the best way to demonstrate that it wasn't worth us just, like, you know, going on giving a permaculture course. It was more sensible to show people what we were doing. So this is one of the main quotes that we use. Example is not the main thing influencing others. It's the only thing. That made a lot of sense to us in our center. So this is the top photo is what we started with, and you can see it was cow trodden. It was super dry, and the second and third photo, it's only 10 years later. So you can see how creating swales and dams, and obviously reforesting the space really brings in nature. And nature responds quite quickly. Like after 5 years, even though it sounds tough, the first 5 years, the land didn't change much, and I thought we were wasting our time. And then, I was a bit of a like, I'm going home. I've had enough of this. And then it was as if nature was like, no, you're not. Look, trees just grew all of a sudden. So it's like, I felt really embarrassed that, I didn't have the sustenance to keep going. But then I did.
You did.
Yeah.
Maybe it was that bit of tough love wording that got
Exactly. There's once again, it was a call to action to nature. Please.
Yes.
As I said, we were like, okay, we're going to go to schools. We're going to show that, we were living, as I said, people saying we were living in paradise, even though we had created this paradise. What about the schools? So this is a school that I'll showcase. You can see the schools in Brazil are really small. You can see that this is the concrete that you can see on the side there. That was the only play area. And this was supposed to be play area, but somehow, they had these cement and brick pillars, and nobody could actually remember what they were for. So we asked the children, okay, you have the problem. The problem is these pillars. It's an ugly place. The teacher said, if we fix it, you can use that area as a play space.
Wow.
So the children were given an introduction to permaculture, and you can see their designs. Some kids were into mathematics, so they measured it. Some children wanted to do art, so some children wanted to do everything. So this is the groups that were playing around with the space and what they would like to see. So you can see little ponds and little spirals, and then some kids were then mapping and measuring and actually designing the space. So you can see that how you can bring in curriculum ideas into your design.
Yes, absolutely.
And it was very much also working with the ethics and values, because in the school we had some really, some kids from really low socioeconomic families and kids with lots of financial ability. Now, this little kid, he was one of the children that came from a rather wealthy family. And as he was working, we needed materials. So he was the only child that had a phone. At that time, I didn't even have a phone and a mobile. And he would ring his dad saying, Dad, bring sand. Dad, bring this. Dad, bring that. So even though he wasn't a leader in the work, he was a leader in the financial situation. And the kids just were like, yeah, let's get our dads and mums to bring in plants. And they really mobilized the community. And the parents actually got excited as well.
Amazing.
And one of the beautiful things is the sharing of the workload. They'll be like, oh my God, there's too many bricks. I'm like, well, and I always work with strategic questioning. So it's like, okay, so what can we do? Or what are we going to do? How are we going to move these bricks from here to here? So they would say, we'll do a line, and they would just create ways of making it and really calling in other kids. Now, you can't see it here, but we have about 300 children working. Just to explain the curiosities of Brazil. So a small child, like preschool to probably grade 1 or 2, they start school at 7 o'clock in the morning and finish at 11. Then they go home. And then at 1 o'clock, the middle school starts in. So about grade 3 to grade probably 11, not grade 11, 11-year-olds, so grade 6. So they come and do their schooling. And then from 5 o'clock to 11 o'clock, the high school students come in. So you have one school that divides with a lot of children. So the challenge is it's really hard to make the school a beautiful place, even the classroom, because it's being used by so many kids. Okay, we're lucky in Australia. We have one classroom and they own the classroom. Where in Brazil they have to share it. So we had to work with 3 different groups at different times, so everybody felt part of the presentation, part of the group, part of the design. So we have some kids doing co-op. So we really encourage people they came to EPIC and they practice sometimes techniques to take it back to the school. And you can see they're loving it.
You said they came to EPIC?
EPIC, sorry. So our institution, the land. It was the Institute of Permaculture of the Cerrado. So it was called IPEC.
Okay, love it.
So it's the Eco Center IPEC, yeah.
And so that was the property you showed us at the beginning with the 10-year.
That's right, yeah. That's correct. So here they would practice some of the things because it was too muddy, and and also gave them a chance to have outings away from the school.
Yeah.
Help concentrating. Kids love cob. They absolutely love it.
Yes.
Yeah.
So here's the before, and this is 1 week later. Look at that.
What?
Yeah.
Oh, so clever. They turned them into tables.
Yeah, so these are the tabletops are stone. So what happened is that I also brought in my co-workers. So we had maybe 4 or 5 groups working at the same time. So some kids worked with a spiral, some kids worked with super adobe. You can see the benches behind the tables, and some kids worked with ferrous cement and made a pond. So they were very much interested in getting their hands. You can see, we also did mosaic. So the kids that weren't really interested in any of that, they could do some artwork to make the space beautiful. Yeah, and then somebody delivered bits of grass. So we were just collecting little bits from the community. And you can see 300 children can make magic really quickly.
Huh? Yes. 3 days.
And we actually got a lot of plants from IPEC, the Eco Center. So you can see we have water plants and other plants that will just and our biggest challenge was keeping the fish in the pond because everybody wanted to take the fish home.
And in the background you've got some rainbow edging across the corner garden. That's today that we probably wouldn't do that because this was done about 15 years ago, and they use plastic bottles filled with colored water. As the edging, because that's what we found in the school, lots of plastic bottles. So I wouldn't do that today. I would try to talk them into doing something else like a stone edging, but the teacher and the kids are really keen on doing that, so you have to go with the flow sometimes as well.
Available resources.
It is available, maybe not renewable, but they are
that's right. But you can see how we got the water element. So it's also this area is really hot 6 months of the year. Right. They do have dengue, and they have something called yellow fever in the area. And of course, when the health minister came to check the pond, they were like, "You need to get rid of this because the problem with mosquitoes." But then the children actually explained, if we don't have mosquitoes because we have frogs and we have lizards and we have fish. So they were able to introduce the concept of a healthy water environment doesn't actually breed mosquitoes.
That must have been a lovely moment hearing.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, it's one of those. Yes. Because I was ready to fight. Like, let's get ready. And then they're like, no. Brazilians are, they're very calm people. And I was ready to really, health minister, you should know this. But no. So you can see after that, once you have your habitat or your backyard living laboratory ready, then you can start experimenting with children. So worms become super interesting, different types of soil become super interesting, and then you've got hundreds of lessons that come from this.
Yes,
you can actually see the curiosity. We got filtering tests, and these are all activities you can actually find in my book. You can see the curiosity with worms. That was a big one. And then, kids planting, and then, working out, how this is a lettuce and going to seed. And the boy was really curious that it looked like a mini tree. Like, how can a lettuce, little chubby fat lettuce, turn into a tall, elongated plant? And, he would record the growth of this lettuce.
Fantastic.
And then we have our renewable energy. These are only little panels that we were able to get, but you can see the interest, the curiosity on the kids' place. And it was like, once you explain how it worked, they got it. They get it really easy.
Yes.
But one of my pet loves is critical thinking, like how to teach critical thinking. And critical thinking, when you start teaching it, the kids can actually start getting critical. So this is another school, and this is like in a positive sense of critical. So this is their this is their side of the playground. They weren't allowed to play in this space because the neighbor would throw out cooking oil every day from her window, and it would land into the play area. And the kids weren't allowed in the space. So I was like, okay. And they're like, we don't like this. And I'm like, okay, what are we going to do? So the kids, actually this is, like I said, different school, about 100 kids went to the neighbor and knocked on the door because the teachers had asked, and and the people that make the food, the cooks asked, but she wasn't interested. When you have 100 children in front of your yard saying, please miss, don't do that to our schoolyard, you've got to listen. So the kids used natural building they decided, she stopped, and we had to remove a lot of soil because it was like oil infested. And it was like lots of, not very nice, not beneficial bugs. It was just really dodgy. And then they wanted to learn how to, after a visit to Eco Centre, they wanted to learn how to render with natural materials. So a bunch of kids, and like the school was very different than Australia. Like you couldn't have kids without shoes rendering a wall in Australia.
But maybe at our Steiner school.
Yeah, probably. That's right. Yeah. Probably in some schools you can, but like you would have all these security codes, but it's very different. Now this person you can see on the ladder is an adult, not kid. Okay. So they took on the, and this is like about 20 children decided to plaster because it was ugly, and we didn't have paint, it was low cost, so we had lots of soil. And you see the beautiful difference. They have a compost pile behind, they painted the fences. The woman was then quite embarrassed that she had ever done that, throwing oil, because she saw that it was going to be a beautiful space, not because she was worried that the kids would get loud. It's a school, of course they're going to get loud.
Now she has beautiful sunflowers to look at.
Exactly. And this is like the view of the pond. You can see the flow forms that we use. That's also and the kids actually helped build this one, and that's the other view of later.
Beautiful.
How pretty.
And that helps purify.
Sorry?
Oh, just the flow forms, like the purifying of the water, and just the interest in design.
Yeah. So what we did, because it was in Brazil, I love flow forms, and I had seen them in Australia, but I really didn't know how to do it. So we were like, okay, let's just use our bums to make the forms. Because we were like, how do we do this? So we sort of measured, I got different size bottoms and wiggled it into clay, and then we had an artist that came and made fibro molds that we could then use ferrous cement inside of the molds. Wow. And if people out there don't know what ferrous cement is, it's basically using cement with a bit of iron, and you make an iron mold, and then you can use that mold to plaster cement, and it makes it a really strong piece. So the ponds are made by ferrous cement, and so the flow form. Beautiful. We go back to the planetschooling book. So, and then we thought, okay, we need to integrate this with material. And like I said, one of my first books was in Portuguese, but now it's in English, just to show people it's possible. Because I found when I came back to Australia, permaculture, when I left, even though I was a hobbyist, it was still quite revolutionary and really out there. And when I came back 20 years later, I noticed it had dulled down a bit. Even though there's some really interesting projects, it once again became a hobbyist way. It was in the TAFE colleges, but still it wasn't very radical. But during lockdown, I've noticed a new sort of radical sense of permaculture, which is a great thing. And what you guys are doing is so important, because you're bringing it to mums and dads and teachers for smaller children. And that's beautiful as well, because, if we don't start young, it's way harder to start with a 7 or 8 year old, even and older. So if you start young, you teach them the appreciation of nature. You can also, you teach them to love nature. When they start getting 7 years and onwards, and they sort of fall out of love with nature a bit, but they're interested in the science of nature, that's when it all clicks in. So it's a really important base. Yeah. And this is my grandson measuring out, making his own design, and he was about 6 years old when he was doing this, and curious enough, if you have an adult to help them measure out, even at 6, they get it. And his determination was he was out there. He was like determined.
Got to catch up with you.
And he's actually been to Brazil twice as well. He's 7 now. He was there when he was a year old, and he was there just before COVID. Because as I said, we've been working in Brazil, and he came to visit us. And I want to sort of leave this section with the best way to find yourself is to lose yourself in the service of others. And I think that's it's from Gandhi, but it's also very much a Buddhist philosophy that, when you're feeling confused, especially during this lockdown, constant lockdown and constant pressure and worry, is the best thing is to lose yourself. And how I do is I lose myself with nature. Every time I start, a moment of anxiety or panic, or like, oh my God, what's happening to the planet? I go out and, I plant some lettuce, or weed the garden, which is really therapeutic.
Yes.
Something that is obviously it's in the service of others. So it's in service of all the little beings that are going to live in your garden. And there's our contact. Whoops.
Thank you.
I shall stop share.
Yay. And I'll also put your contact at the bottom, in the YouTube, so people can, connect with you anytime. And get your book, people. Grab the book. It's amazing. Such a great resource. Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah, that was fantastic. Thank you.
Yeah. And I always like to show that, because when people feel that's it's an impossibility to make change, when you see children doing that and taking it seriously to make their life better, it's a little bit of a, whoa, if they can do it, we can do it too, because we often have a lot more resources.
Yeah, yes, absolutely. And where they take that, like we are kind of cultivating these little seeds and innovators and scientists and earth lovers. What they create in the future, we can't even really imagine. I think, like, with our program, we're really, it's for kids. It's called Naturekids, but it's for the inner child, for all of the parents as well.
For sure.
And we're modeling, even your grandson, being there at age 1, or, so young, even if they're not, learning through words or, drawing, just absorbing from a baby, absorbing that the frequency and the life and the gardens and everything.
That's right. Yeah.
Food that's just they're eating because, or the food, the nourishment from parents, because of how healthy they are, because they're living in sustainable landscapes and living a zero, like taking toxins out of their life. Like, it just extrapolates that it's a lifestyle.
For sure. Yeah, it very much is. And it's interesting too, like the different types of food. Like in Brazil, we eat a lot of palm fruits. Acai is one of them. That's people are crazy in Australia for. And like, that's just it's just like a big kasha, a big hanging purple beads that you actually pick up, and the locals mush it with their hand through a sieve, and you take the pulp and you eat that. And then there's other palm fruits that you pick and you boil, quite a long time, and then you peel it, and it's got a texture like vegetarians love it, because it gives you that chew that you may miss, like if you weren't a vegetarian from birth and you miss that chew of meat, that sort of crunching of the teeth, that gives you the crunching of the teeth that you need, but it's a palm fruit. And your kids get to experience that, when they travel firsthand. And in Brazil, in the Amazon, they don't eat acai cold. They actually eat at room temperature with crunchy fish.
Right.
Yeah, it's like just down south as acai traveled. So acai in Australia is way sweeter than you eat in Brazil.
Yeah, it's a savoury.
Yeah, there it's like, and when it's sweet, it's a touch sweet. It's not like here I sort of twist when I eat it.
Wow, yeah.
It's a nice twist, but
so foreign, so different.
Yeah. And even cashew nuts. Most people just think, oh, they're nuts, but that's the little peak at the end of the cashew fruit.
Yeah. And my daughter, that was her favourite season, cashew season. She would be climbing trees and sit in the tree and do her homeschooling in the tree, just like picking cashews. You get the fruit from this big to maybe this big.
Yeah.
The yellow is larger, the red ones are smaller.
Yeah.
I'm not much of a fan of cashew fruit. I like cashew juice, but not fruit. It's a bit tart for me, but kids love it.
Yeah, that's
Sweet
it.
tarts, yeah.
And all the different trying fruits are all different maturity, you know, when it's light and crunchy or when it goes really mature and it's
And actually, I'm sure a lot of these fruits would actually grow where you guys live.
Yeah.
Because that tropical, but they're not native, so I don't know how that would go.
Yeah. Well, we just have them in zone 2 and 3 and keep them in small scale intensives and food forest settings and well, it's in tropic lines and just make sure that they're not out in close to zone 5 where they could become
that's right, and that's what I think too. I tend to think of along the same lines. If you manage something, then there's a lot less chance of it becoming a problem elsewhere if you manage it from the start. I hear people hate the camphor tree, a love-hate relationship. And I have to tell them, okay, the camphor tree is here because we cut down everything else, and it's the only thing. It's actually faster than the eucalypt here in growing. So it's a beautiful tree, but it's just in the wrong country.
Lantana here, we've got Lantana issues. Really, observation. Coming back to principle 1, observe and interact, and doing things with slow and small solutions. Don't plant out a massive monoculture of an exotic. But see how it reacts in the environment.
That's actually what you say is completely true, because that's how we started IPEC. Is that I used to get a little bit spun out when I would look out to the horizon, and I'd be like, okay, no more looking out to the horizon. Look at your feet. Look at your feet. So, and it's something Bill Mollison always used to say: as soon as you walk out your door, start there. So that's what we did. We started really small, and then we just moved out. One of the other projects we worked on, it was something like 70,000 trees, and it was a massive block. Like what you're looking at there is about 25 hectares. We worked on something that was, I can't even remember how big, and we made islands of trees. It was also bare. We made islands all over, I think it was about 8 different islands that over 10 years would then met, and then it's all reforested. But the same thing, it was a massive, we didn't have a centre of activity. We didn't have a house. It was just a block of land that would be in the future an eco-village. So after the roads were marked, that's how we connected the place, making islands, small islands, and letting nature connect it all. And she does.
And that's a beautiful strategy for weed management as well, because you've got the circle on the outside. You can be,
Yeah, exactly. And that in that area we did plant only natives, but non-natives always get in. The banana. Australians love bananas, non-native. We love oranges, non-native. Mango, non-native. Lemon, non-native. We've got a massive list. So, but if you have it in, like you said, your zone 2, you can control all the non-natives.
Beautiful. Thank you for sharing. So go for it. You go.
Okay. There's already been a lot in here, but is there any other advice that you could share with our Nature Kids families about being earth parents?
I would definitely say encourage critical thinking. It's challenging because sometimes the critical thinking comes back at you. Like you say you don't do this, but why do you do this? You say you recycle, but why have we got stickers, on mandarins? And I'm like, good question. Why do we have it? Because I didn't buy it. Let's ask who bought it. So, there's lots of things but that's what we want, is that the world in the future, the world is going to be, we don't know what it's going to be like actually, but there's just challenge after challenge for children in the future. And I think they can step up to the challenge if they learn critical thinking. So if they start thinking, analyzing, discussing, questioning, evaluating, or action, always action, and then they're evaluating their actions and they go back. So it's almost like teaching them action research at a really young age, which I when I work in schools, that's what I do. I want you to question, and it's going to be uncomfortable. And the way I see it in a lot of places, adults have had their turn and we've sort of messed it up. So we've got to have courage and believe that kids will come with a solution, because they do. So that's, and trust in nature, which it took me 5 years to trust in nature, but she will respond. She never fails to respond, especially if you're working in a tough area, and, you're close to the outback, or places where there's lacking water. Is like, bring in your design, then trust nature, it will happen. They're the things I hold on to.
Lovely, yeah. Thank you.
Thanks.
Got in there. And I'm sure there's probably a few answers to this question, but can you share with us something that you love about nature? What is one of your most favorite things about nature?
I think what I just said is like nature responds. You plant a little seed and you get a tree. Like, what sort of investment is that? I keep saving in my bank and nothing happens.
Yeah.
I do a bit of Bitcoin and I lose more Bitcoin than I actually make. So, but, and that's why I've actually stopped all of that, just got rid of my Bitcoin, because that was way too stressed. Not even I had a big one. I just have a bit of a Bitcoin. Got rid of that, too stressful. And, because I know that if I keep planting, I get return. So, at the moment, if I can feed my family healthy, organic food, I'm really happy with that. But I acknowledge that I don't make the magic. I work my soil. So I try to partner with worms and all the soil biology. But, I wait till nature responds, and she always does. And sometimes she responds with weeds, which is, could be a problem, could be a solution. Can you eat them? Or can they become biofertilizer? Or, I look at a potential problem and think, okay, how can I twist this? At the moment, I've got 3 little crazy ducks running around my backyard, attacking my chickens. They were ducklings. They were living happily together now. Now it's like having the boys on the hood. They're like bullying my chickens, but they've literally solved my snail problem and my weed problem. Yeah. So now I'm going to take them, I'm going to give them to my friend and just bring them back when I need them, because they're turning out to be quite aggressive, like I said. Yeah. Not with us, they love us, but they're being aggressive with all their animals. And this is in a suburban backyard. Okay, so I don't have a big block of land like I did in Brazil. I have a suburban backyard that's designed so you can just move around, area to area, so I can save time, and I have animals to do some of my work, which is bantam chickens to get the pests in my garden, because I can put them out there. They just love fossicking around, and they'll just eat the bugs, and then I'll take them off before they start eating the veggies. And the ducks, they go into the wild spaces. Yeah, so all in a suburban area, and like I said, nature's she's kicking it.
Yeah.
My neighbours don't really like it. Even though it's in Mullumbimby, the street I'm on is very organised, and they have beautiful sort of stylized trimmed trees that I wouldn't have the patience to do. And of course, then you get to my block and it's just like vroom, food forest in the front with a little library. We have a free little library so kids can come and collect books. And then we have at the backyard more of an organised garden.
Yeah, okay.
Beautiful. The wild productive garden.
Yeah, that's right. Urban food forest.
But they spend time manicuring and then hopping in the car and going to the shops and buying food.
Exactly.
And walk outside and plant seeds, watch nature receive the abundance.
And I always see that the little library, the children stop to look at the library, but then after they get their book, they will all swap their book. That I see them looking at the trees and looking at the fruit, and I say you can eat them if you want, and they start foraging. So the more I think urban gardens we have, the more community it creates, because like I said, I'm always chatting to the mums and the kids, and they're coming to collect food or books or things like that. So it makes me happy.
Yeah, that's absolutely. Beautiful. Thank you so much for sharing. Yes, I think we've gained so much knowledge from you today, and just to hear about the projects, where you've come from and what led into writing your incredible book, which is such a resource for everybody now. So I guess thanks COVID for putting you on your seat and getting that happening. Anything else you'd like to share, Lucy, today before we finish our interview?
No, what we can do is make a special code for the all your friends,
Woo!
and then they can get a discount. We can swap the details later. I'll give you a special. First, I'll get my daughter to do it because I'm a little bit computer illiterate.
Awesome.
And she'll make a code especially for your group so they can get discounted books.
Thank
Amazing.
you so much.
Thank you,
That's
thank you,
such
thank
a blessing.
you.
Yeah.
Oh, thank you.
Cool. All right. Well, until further ado, we wish you the best, and we'll keep promoting your book and
we'll keep connecting
reading
on
it
social.
and inspiring our families with it.
Yeah.
And thank you for everything you do on this earth.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you so much.
Cool.
Okay, bye.
Bye.
Bye.